welcome to the Distilled Buildings Tech Podcast.
Where smart buildings are shaken, stirred, and data-driven.
I am your host, Jason Shearer.
I'm your host, AK, Akram Khalis.
And this is our first episode, so we're going to kick off a little bit with just telling you a bit about ourselves. So Akram, tell me how you got into, the smart buildings industry, or maybe what your career arc was that got you where you are today.
Sure. Yeah. I started as an engineer. I was a little kid that opened up every single toy and never put it back together. And that's how my parents figured out that I really should be an engineer. That drove them to put me into a specific college and specific school system that allows me to take multiple degrees into one person. And I was able to build product mechanically, put software, put hardware on, and build an actual product that I can take to market. I did it a few times, and here we are at MHT. I run the company. We're Smart Building Technology, and a company that does Power over Ethernet lighting. Jason,
Awesome.
How about you?
Awesome. Yeah, so I've been in the tech industry for 25 years. I've been at Cisco Systems for 15, and a variety of roles, from collaboration to industrial partnerships, and now leading a team around smart building go-to-market as our workplace's CTO. But I'd say my buildings journey started a long time ago, before I even got into the tech industry. My family, my stepdad was a real estate developer and broker. So even before I got out of high school, before I went to college, I had my real estate degree, or my real estate license, in Kansas City, and did a lot of transaction brokerages for commercial properties. I never ever thought that experience, way back when, would really have any impact on what I do today for a living.
That's cool. That's awesome.
So you've told me before, you're originally from Morocco.
Yep.
How'd you end up in the US and starting all these businesses?
Yeah, so through middle school, I joined the program by Alcatel at the time that allowed us through a high school. As a high school students, I would study engineering, and the entire high school program was not only you're studying your entire high school, but you actually learn and become a true engineer. So labs, I went through mechanical engineering, hardware, software engineering, and that basically led me into becoming a true engineer, product development.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, after high school, instead of going to France, my parents decided to bring me to the US, and that's how I started my journey. Came to US, found myself with a little bit of knowledge on how to build products, and I found myself with little entrepreneurial spirits, and I took that, collaborated it together, and that's what creates products into businesses, into shifting that over and over and creating product, getting them to customers, getting them to users, and then doing it again and again.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess Lucent Alcatel, being a French company, that was sort of the connection to Morocco.
Yeah, that was it. Being from Morocco, and specifically Casablanca,
yeah.
You get to be speaking both languages, Spanish and French, or at least
Mm-hmm.
you get some influence of both. And because of that, that was the drive and motivation for a lot of the students we were 30 students out of 30 million or 36 million students in the country that wanted that program. And that allows you basically to stay motivated, stay concentrated, and they try to pick the best, and that was the drive and motivation for them, and it worked out great for all of us.
Yeah, awesome. I grew up in Kansas City, so I've moved around a little bit in my career and adulthood. Went to Kansas State University for mechanical engineering, and then like a lot of engineers, never actually practiced ME. Yeah. I had some internships at Allied Signal and Honeywell, and although engineering, for a lot of us, it teaches us critical thinking skills and troubleshooting and problem solving, systems integration, and almost immediately went into the technology industry out of school.
That's awesome. When did you make the shift to IT and infrastructure?
Yeah, networking? I mean, I said, straight out of the university, went into my first IT job as like a lowly like help desk technician. Like everybody in IT starts at the bottom, and then work my way up into networking, infrastructure, voice and video communication. So I worked for a company that like jumped right in with IP telephony, like right around like 2000, just after Cisco Systems bought a tiny little company called Celsius. And we were putting voice over IP phones on desks, and no one thought, like at that time, like everybody thought it's never going to work, right? Like Ethernet's not reliable enough, for voice traffic. And there were some there were some hard times like in the early voice over IP days, but it's funny like looking back now. And when we were at Panduit last week, asking all these cabling contractors and telecom consultants, like raise your hand if you've installed a PBX in a room lately and use like 66 blocks and 110s, and everybody's like, no, it doesn't
What
work
is
that
that?
way
Yeah,
anymore. Yeah, yeah.
it's like asking our children about a floppy disk. They
Oh
don't know what that
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. Go get the VHS tape.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So that was kind of my journey. Worked for resellers and partners for like the first 7 or 8 years of my career, and then I'd say like my other like my second little dip into buildings and integrated systems was I was working for a partner that was consulting for a healthcare company, and that healthcare company was building a brand new corporate headquarters. So somewhere around like 160,000 square feet with a big data center footprint. At least at the time, it's like a 20,000 square foot data center. And I weaseled my way into construction trailers and design meetings, with MEP firms and architects. And they're like, why is this telecom guy here? But it was really, really important because we integrated, all the structured cabling, like all the infrastructure, in day one. So everything that we know as, at least in the US, is Div 27, like it was, part of the plan rather than just an afterthought.
fascinating. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I saw the same trend with LEDs.
Hmm.
Coming from MHT. MHT was originally called MHT Lighting, and that was the company that we did induction lighting for a hot 20 minutes, and then of course LEDs came to market. And yeah, it was the same journey, seeing customers that are looking ahead and wanted that reduction in kW and reduction in watts, and they
Hmm.
were putting LEDs. But then of course it has its challenges in the beginning, just like every other technology. It was still being perfected. We still get LED burnouts. They were not ready for outdoor. And look at us now. You cannot go anywhere and put an incandescent bulb. You have to put an LED. And that's the journey we're in. We're going to be data driven. We're hungry for information. We want we want controls, and we've been building buildings forever without that technology in mind. And I think
Yeah.
that's going to change.
When you guys, so you said you dipped your toes in, in incandescence for a hot minute. Like, was that transition to LEDs? Was it like really obvious to you, or what was the indicator?
Yeah, the mission of MHT has always been an energy conservation optimization to the end user,
Yeah.
regardless of what the technology was. And having incandescent lighting was a commodity at the time, but having LEDs was just a future proof in your space. You don't put
Hmm.
a 100-watt light bulb and you know it's going to draw 100 watts. The equivalent LEDs were 7 watts. So magically, you did 93% savings and you achieved the same outcome. It was a no-brainer to every end user to put in LED lights, and the journey continued from just going to LEDs, and then the American market or North American market was saturated by the Far East, and of course we went to controls. Even though you had LEDs, you don't want to keep them on 24/7, especially in commercial buildings and healthcare and hospitalities and education. So you wanted that automated controls. That's where we shifted to Inspector, and that's how Inspector was born: is the ability to create more same mission, optimize energy in the building. You wanted that autonomous control, and you could do it via IP, where you can deliver power and data over the same cable.
Yeah.
That was it.
What was that? So obviously like LEDs, like that was the first entrance control systems. And then for you, what was the aha of, PoE, being the delivery mechanism. Like where did that spark of innovation originally come from?
No sparks in PoE for sure.
No, none. Yeah, touch safe,
Yes.
lick safe.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
totally. And it was actually a company that did low voltage energy transmission using category cable.
Hmm.
And for them, it was a proprietary system that delivered power and data, but it was over category cable. And that was the messaging is customers understood that the same Ethernet cable that they plug their printer on, it's the same one that they can power a light with. And
Yeah.
MHT Lighting at the time was the largest reseller for them. And we were able to deploy large number of projects to Fortune 500. And that created a market for us. And of course, slightly after about a year or two from being at the hype and at the top, we
Hmm.
found ourselves with a technology, but then the control package was bought by a different company and shelved. And we had customers asking us for the same exact technology. And that's when I started my journey with Power over Ethernet, with 15 watts to 30 watts to 60, and we keep upgrading to 90 and beyond now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of like the wild ride of coming into the industry around the year 2000, voice over IP, and at that time, non-standard PoE, like when as Cisco had created, was 7.5 watts, and like the first IEEE ratification was 15 watts, and at the time, like that seemed like a lot,
Right.
but in the early 2000s, like before, because like what year was like the massive shift to LED? Like that had to be like
2000,
2010s.
yeah, 2010, 2011. The company was formed in 2009. Like I said, 20 minutes later, we found literally 12 months. We found
Yeah,
ourselves not doing incandescents anymore.
yeah, yeah.
And that was 2010, 2011. We were doing mostly LEDs,
Hmm.
assembly, made in America, ship from here to either South America or North America.
Yeah. But LEDs were really an enabling technology for the advent of PoE lighting, because pre-LED, like you couldn't even power a single incandescent light on a 15-watt port.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was that, and still the momentum is growing because you can see that LED efficiency went down,
Hmm.
well, went high in efficiency, but down in lumen per watt, and that's really created a bigger market for us to deliver more outcome with the same single cable. So you can now, with 90 watts, you can imagine how much light output you can actually deliver.
Yeah. Which
What?
we all know that 90 watts or 100 watts in class 2 is kind of like the end of the road,
Yep.
for PoE. But I think in future episodes we'll get into how do we get intelligent power beyond the class 2 barrier.
Yeah. Why don't we tell the audience how did this podcast exist?
Yeah, so and we've only, I mean, honestly, like we've only known each other for about a year or so.
Yeah.
I've been in this role at Cisco for just going on 2 years, leading the engineering side of our smart and intelligent workspaces, go to market, um, and that really came from my collaboration background, like a little bit of digital building background, and just I think it set me up pretty well. But where we came together, obviously, was in PoE and how that's like an enabler for digital buildings. But the podcast idea, I think it was in Amsterdam. We were
Yeah.
at the Vault
Cisco Live.
Bar. Yeah,
Yep.
it's Cisco Live in Amsterdam, back in January, February, like in March time frame.
Yeah.
And you drug me and a couple of other people down to the Vault Bar, which is this like, what do they call it? It's kind of like, you ordered your drinks by
Mixologist.
vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you didn't order off the menu, like that. You don't order an old fashioned or a whiskey. You tell
Yeah.
them like, how are you feeling tonight, and then they go like make a cocktail like based on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
25 minutes later, you get a cocktail. But yes, it
exactly.
was it was absolutely an experience for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But I think we were sitting around that night, and
Yeah.
we kind of just like came up with the idea of, hey, like we both like bourbon, and mixed drinks like old fashioned, and we like talking about technology. So let's start a podcast and kind of educate the world a little bit.
Yeah. We see that, spreading awareness and education has been the first thing that we want to do and promote is
Hmm.
get in front of people to explain and let experts come in and actually educate the market about how you can actually get into a smart building. I mean, the definition of smart building, you ask 100 people, you get 100 different answers.
Yep.
We're going to try to unify that and bring experts, bring building owners, bring building facility managers, anyone that's interested, and get them educated and provide them enough information so at least we can get to a common ground.
Yeah. Because I think like one thing we see all the time is, like you said, everybody says that they have smart buildings, but a lot of times you'll see that they have smart systems within their buildings. So they might have like really smart like HVAC scheduling, but the HVAC scheduling has no idea about like occupancy from the building. But what we've identified is there's a lot of, almost like bullheadedness or institutional knowledge around this is how I've always done it. I'm not going to change the way I'm doing it because it's going to be disruptive. It might be risky and change the the risk profile for whatever project I'm working on. But what we found is in a lot of cases, you can actually mitigate risk by bringing everything onto a common fabric, right?
Exactly.
And having, whether it's base building systems or lighting or, conferencing systems, like all on the same, IP network backbone, it can actually remove risk and even shrink project timelines.
Yeah, and we see it. The complexity just gets drastically better because there's no more products and complex systems and proprietary systems that you have to stitch together to get to the goal that you mentioned, which is smart building.
Yep. So we're gonna have, we're gonna talk about that and how to overcome some of those barriers. Every episode, we will have some sort of a guest on. So that could be somebody from, a building owner, another technology company, consultants, contractors, like you name it. We're gonna have a very, very wide variety of experts on the show every episode,
including bourbon experts and
Oh,
sommeliers and
we totally didn't. So like what's in the name? AK like Distilled Buildings Tech Podcast. Like what's that all about?
yeah, it's the combination of distilled spirits and bourbons and mixed drinks and
Yeah.
cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
And
No.
that's going to be the start. In every single episodes we'll have at least the mixology or notes, or at least we'll open up a bourbon or a drinks and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give the audience a little bit of knowledge there. And
Yep.
we'll talk about where that background comes from. And I
Yep.
think the following 10 minutes we'll give a top of mind and talk about the world's news. And I think the last 20 minutes is when we bring on the guest and talk about an actual topic that's in the tech space.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be, and the episodes will be either fortnightly, so every other week. I know it's a lot of times like bi-weekly can get a little bit confusing, but every Monday, every other Monday is when we'll drop new episodes.
Yep.
So you'll be able to kick off your week with with either a bourbon on Monday night, like after getting the Monday grind done, or listen to it on the way to work and wish you were having a bourbon with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Who? So we talked about a little bit about who we're going to bring on, like from a guest standpoint. Industry experts, building owners, manufacturers, solution providers, who should listen to this podcast to absorb some of that information.
This podcast is for building owners, technologists, infrastructure team, product manufacturer, and bourbon enthusiast. Anyone that wants to learn about spirits or is building a building and really wants to understand how to do it from the ground up.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get this going with you. We already have a pretty, I'd say a pretty star-studded cast of episodes in the books or being recorded in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Anything else you want to leave with the audience before we roll? Oh, we didn't even talk about what we're drinking. What's in your glass today?
I cracked the Basil Hayden.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you?
That's a good standard. So I'm drinking a Leaper's Fork bourbon from Franklin, Tennessee. A good friend of mine, Stu Patrick, gave it to me a couple of weeks ago. It is it's bottled in bond, so it is 110 proof, but and it's aged for 4 years. But I'm telling you, like, this bourbon, it drinks like super smooth. Like, for 110 proof bourbon, it's not hot on the palate whatsoever.
Awesome.
It's
Cheers.
it's one of those dangerous bourbons.
Dangerously smooth.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Yeah. Cool. So obviously, first episode in the books. Everybody subscribe to the show on, like, whatever your favorite podcast app is. Whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I'm a big fan of Overcast myself. It'll be published on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. We'll be posting clips to social media on LinkedIn and YouTube Shorts and all of that good stuff, and definitely share it with your friends. And if you're not connected with us on on LinkedIn or social media, definitely do that.
Yeah, leave us a
Anything
review.
else?
Tell us comments. We're here to listen. We're here to obviously get answers for you. Even if you have some questions, drop us DMs, give us comments, reviews.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. And until next time, stay curious and stay distilled.